Before my stories get started, I want to share some details for better understanding. When I say green tea, I'm actually talking about beer. And when I stated I was smoking cigarettes, I really meant I was blazing a joint. This isn't a one-time occurrence, but one big series of disturbing events. And I'm 100% on this, and I'm not making anything up. This shit really has happened, and nobody believes me. A few weeks ago, I was hiking in a high desert. I live very close to the mountains. These mountains are interesting, brown tall grassland slopes at the bottom of the mountains, connecting to steep rocky forestry peaks, with various cliffs, crevices, and trenches. One day I came across something on my home mountain I'd never seen, an old hollow mine shaft. I was in a new area, but still this thing was on my mountain range. After taking pictures and hiking around it for a few hours, I sat down on a hilltop to smoke a cigarette and drink a few beers. After a while I look back and see two figures coming down a large hill. They seem to be coming down from the upper part of the mountain. The rabbit country, as we call it, where cougars and bears live. They stopped immediately when I looked at them and stared at me and pointed. I looked away but I glanced back in caution to see them staring. They were too far away to make out details at this point, but something about this seemed really weird, and my gut told me to get away. So I started walking down the hill that I was on and reached the main fire trail which would lead me back home. The trail leads from a small basin area to a bench bordering the east of the trail. I spotted the two figures walking along the top of the hill, staring at me. Then the two started walking faster and coming down directly towards me. They were trying to go in front of me, it seemed. The way they were walking and staring at me was creepy to say the least, so I aborted the plan of following the trail and began heading west towards the nearest part of civilization. I descended down another slope, and right when I got to the bottom, I thought I'd lost them, but sure enough they were staring at me. And one of them whistled and said, "Here boy, come here." But they had no dog. They seemed to be whistling at me. They began walking down the hill after me much faster this time. I kept heading west and looked back, and they were getting much closer than was comfortable. I took off running and quickly came to the top of the last major slope which had led me into the valley. As I began running down the hill, I ran into a cliff. Of all times I was stuck and had nowhere to go. Now in a state of terror, I'm trying to call the police to no avail. My connection kept failing. I had no choice but to start making my way down this cliff because I was completely surrounded. I really didn't want to actually use my weapons of self-defense on somebody. I could hear the two men whistling at me again. "Come here boy." After getting to the bottom of the cliff, I bushwhacked all the way down to the edge of civilization, now on the field with my parents. I made it to a trail paved the bordering town. I looked back. It was fairly crowded, but I saw the two figures a way back. The trail was fairly crowded. I didn't want to make too much of a scene, so I cut through a bit of an alley between two houses and walked through an upper neighborhood until my dad picked me up and drove me home. For days I was disturbed by this. I had no idea why two men would follow me, considering I'm a 30-year-old man. The day before I posted this, I had a third encounter with these two. I'm about 95% sure it's the same weirdos. The second time they tried to stalk me a few days back but were too far. Nothing eventful there. The next day I was up on the mountain, but in a different region where I always usually go. I saw two figures in all black and brown standing at the top of a very tall slope connecting the grassland to the cliffy areas. They were in a thick forest of vegetation. One of them looked and pointed at me, and they both looked and started coming down again. I decided I was going to confront them. I set up a spot to chill and drink a few beers while they followed the deer trail. That deer trail connects to a biking trail. But they cut off the trail and began coming directly towards me. Now I'm certain they are trying to get to me. I kept pepper spray my loaded gun available, but hidden from view. They bushwhacked and took quite a tough route just to get to me. When they were in earshot, they stopped and stared. One was big and bald, and the other was smaller and had crooked teeth, some of which were missing, and this guy had black hair. They had guns strapped to their backs. I looked them both in the eyes and studied them, because I'd been genuinely curious by who they were. So the big guy walked very fast and aggressively towards me after I nod and say, "How it's going?" Blank expressionless look, mind you. Then his body, the smaller dude with the master teeth, said, "No, let's go this way." Then the smaller dude who had beckoned the bigger dude muttered something rude to me and glared at me as they began walking down the hill. They walked much slower away from me than they had approached, and would glance back at me, which is what keeps me scratching my head. I stared at them the whole time while pretending they were just normal hikers. Here's why I'm updating on that. First off, there was no path behind me. I was in front of a thick cluster of bushes and trees, so the only reason I can assume he was coming that way was to do something to me. Second off, they initially went out of their way both times to see my random spot, and the way the big guy was coming at me, I can only assume he wanted to hurt me. But maybe upon getting close and seeing details, they withdrew due to fear, because I'm a big guy with a deep voice and a mangy beard. But they lost interest in what their intentions were in me. Maybe they were hoping I was under 20 years old, and were disappointed when they saw a big 30-year-old dude who even knows. Yesterday on my hike, I had to settle for a while and drank some green tea, smoked a few cigarettes after a long hike. After being there getting great views of the Valley of City for an hour, I look up and spot two men in camo staring at me from behind an oak bush. They were very easy to see. I heard one say, "Yeah, he's standing there." It sounded like he was on the phone with someone else. I didn't want to look afraid like the last similar experience, so I stayed put and did my thing, listening closely. They were talking about me. "Got him. He looks awake." I glanced up there again. He's just standing there. They moved slowly along the hill as I listened carefully as I tried to stand there and not look terrified. They stopped again and started talking about me. How I know was they had gone behind some bigger bushes and began pacing around, so I couldn't tell quite where they were. I'd had enough. They were watching me for 20 minutes as far as I was aware. I just wanted to prove I'm just paranoid, but they were absolutely watching me. I began taking the trail down towards my neighborhood and saw a large guy jogging up the trail towards the T section of the trail. As it got to the top, I heard a morbid yell, "Oh fuck, we missed the opportunity." So they followed me near the bottom of the mountain. I heard them always back. I wasn't having a great day until I heard that. I felt sick to my stomach and cold. I have no idea what someone would want with me. This isn't the first time an instance like this has occurred, so I'm not hiking in that region anymore. I believe the one or even two-time incident would be normal for paranoia, but this is the third time it's happened in the last month. They sounded young, like maybe 18 years old, but the way they were watching me and talking about me was really strange.